We hear about it every single day, whether watching TV, reading the newspaper or a magazine, going online, or just simply listening to the radio. We're constantly bombarded with ads and propaganda, all telling us about all these different weather patterns and all these things that are going on, saying, this company's going green, that car has bad emissions, change your light bulbs. Honestly, it can be so annoying, but have you ever stopped to listen to them? Have you ever heard what they have to say? Do you understand it? Climate change, not global warming, climate change.
So some people may now be asking, if global warming isn't what climate change is, then what is climate change? Well, climate change is an average change in temperature measured over a long period of time. This means that, say, you were to take a period of time, like 10 years, and measure the climate every single year, the temperature of every day over the time, and then using a series of math equations, you can figure out the average temperature. Whether the temperature is increasing or decreasing, it's still climate change. If the temperature is increasing, it's often referred to as global warming. This is what global warming is. But climate change isn't anything new. It's been happening since well before humans were on this earth. And as long as we don't destroy the earth in the process, it's going to keep happening long after we're gone. Climate change is something that can be very difficult to understand for some people. Because the effects of it move so slowly, it's not always easy to see them on our day-to-day lives. And this can make it hard to comprehend. But there's no denying the very real facts of climate change. The Earth's climate has been increasing at a steady rate since the 1970s, roughly at the same time as our Industrial Revolution. And really, this isn't a good thing at all. But climate change is caused by anything and everything that anyone does. It's both naturally occurring and species-induced. An example of this is dairy cows. Dairy cows are one of the #1 producers of methane gas in the United States. In the USA alone, they produce more than 80 million metric tons of methane gas every single year. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but to me, those numbers stink. There are many other factors that affect climate change, though. Things like a change in the Earth's orbit, or a shift of the longitudinal axes caused by an earthquake, changes in the strength of the rays coming from the sun, volcano eruptions, or the change in wind and ocean currents. But these are all natural factors of climate change. These things will happen no matter what we do. We can't stop them, and we can't increase, decrease them, we can't do anything to them. So they're not really the problem. The problem is the changes that we're causing, all the extra emissions we're putting out. Humans have been leaving their mess in the Earth's environment for such a long time, leaving it just to be cleaned up by someone else. But unfortunately, Mother Nature's a pretty crappy cleaning lady, and that mess is starting to pile up. And sooner or later, it might explode. So now, we know that the world's climate has been increasing at a pretty rapid pace since the 1970s, and we know that it's being caused by an increased amount of pollution given off by us humans, our carbon emissions. But yet there's still some people who say, well, so what if the world's getting warmer? It just means it's going to be nicer outside, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that there's a chain reaction caused when the temperature increases, even just a little bit. The ice caps will begin to melt. Currently, the Earth has 2 major ice sheets, one in Greenland on the North Pole and one in Antarctica on the South Pole. These ice caps contain 90% of the world's fresh water. And if they were both to melt completely, sea levels would rise by over 120 meters, putting pretty much the entire world underwater. Melting polar ice caps, rising sea levels, these are both factors of the increasing temperature that we're experiencing right now. But they're not the only ones. This increase in temperature is also causing our average weather patterns to change. And because of that, we're experiencing more droughts, more floods, higher flood levels. More extreme weather, like tornadoes, hurricanes, forest fires, flash floods, all those types of things. All the disasters that occur. And in one way or another, it's all linked back to climate change. It's all linked to the effects that humans are having on the atmosphere. Not the natural causes of climate change, the ones that we have, our emissions. It all roots back to our emissions. We're killing our planet. One day at a time.
Now I know that you guys all have these energy efficient lights, appliances, all that other great stuff, and that's really good for our environment. We should all be doing that. But when I talk about how do we fix this, how do we reverse the effects of climate change, I don't mean on a person-to-person scale. I'm talking about fixing climate change, reversing the effects of climate change on a global scale. We need to put in force a plan to globally mitigate climate change. A plan that would involve world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, leaders of government, and leaders of mega corporations, businesses, the ones who produce all these emissions. These companies need to sit down and talk things over, plan it out. And I know that many events and organizations like this already exist, but there should be one run by the people, for the people, where we get to ask questions of these people who are polluting our environment. We get to ask why, where, and how this is all happening. And then we can talk about how to fix it. We need to work with environmentalists and ecologists and people who are trained in this field of study. We can reverse the effects of climate change, get it to a point where it's sustainable. But if we just sit back and ignore it, if we just say, whatever, it's going to happen anyways, I can't control it, I'm one person. So while you sit back, you enjoy your new iPhone, the latest new series on Netflix, your new car with your heated seats. Trust me, I do all these things. I have the latest iPhone. My car has heated seats. I watch everything on Netflix. But while we sit back and enjoy that, climate change is going to creep up on us, because slow and steady wins the race. So though we may not see the changes, they're there and they're coming. And what are you going to do when you wake up one morning and they're right in front of you? In Ontario, Canada, they didn't have snow until almost the end of December. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, also in Canada. Our average climate, our average temperature in January is around negative 18 degrees Celsius. Minus 18, minus 22, that's how I always think of January. Today, January 26th, we had +2 with rain. +2. Sure, it was minus 32 weeks ago, but it +2. That's an extreme movement for 2 weeks. Now, it's not that it's going to be +2 forever, here on out in January. This was one random event. But looking at the scale, having -30 a week ago and +2 today, that's an extreme jump in weather. You didn't see those kind of things 30, 40 years ago. So sometimes it makes you wonder, what caused it? Scientists are getting really good at predicting the changes in climate, the current temperatures, weather, all that. And they're also getting really good at predicting sea levels. They've been doing it for years. And over the past few years, past few decades even, they've been really close with their numbers. So if we continue to warm up our planet the way that we are, use resources the way that we are, emit carbon emissions the way that we are, will this rise in sea level increase? Because since the 1880s, there's been a constant rise in sea level. But you always notice an increase right around the 1970s, that industrial revolution. If our sea level rise rate continues to rise, we could have a serious problem on our hands. Like, say, Anyone ever been to the Netherlands? If you haven't, you may want to book a ticket, because in 60 years, there may not be a Netherlands anymore. Maybe underwater. The Netherlands is at such a low point on the sea level that just a mere 2 meters of sea level rise will put the entire country underwater. 2 meters. 1 meter would show major cities like Amsterdam, a place filled with culture, love, history, all that, underwater, washed away. Is not sustainable. That's 2 meters in rise. 2 meters could happen in the next 60 years. That's not out of reach from us. That's within our lifetimes. I will only be 75 years old. So when I think about that, it scares me a little bit. The thought that by the year 2060, the Netherlands could be underwater, among other places too. Miami, Florida, almost all of Florida, the Everglades, all of it underwater with just a few meters of sea level rise. Now I know what you guys may be thinking. 2 meters rise in sea level, country underwater. Those are extreme. It's never going to happen. Well, it could. Maybe it doesn't happen in 60 years, but maybe in 100, it's possible. We don't own the world. We're just renting it from our children. My generation's inheriting a broken planet, one that's been destroyed by carbon emissions and other gases, things that are increasing our temperature and our average climate. We need to reverse the effects of climate change to fix it. But why don't we look at what's causing it? Greenhouse gases. That's what everyone talks about when they talk about emissions. Greenhouse gases are a natural effect. There is a natural greenhouse gas effect. It happens naturally in the environment. And it's the reason why the air surrounding our planet is able to heat up. Sunlight passes through our planet's ozone layer and hits the Earth. The heat and radiation energy that is not absorbed by the Earth is then refracted back into the air. Some of it escapes through the atmosphere back into space, and that heat is lost. But others then bounce back off of these greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and then dissipate and heat the air around the Earth. This is natural greenhouse gas effect, and this is good. If it weren't for this, our planet couldn't exist. It's often believed that if there were life on ancient Mars, a factor that could have contributed to the loss of that planet, the loss of that life, was the atmosphere being blown away and the inability to have these greenhouse gases and to heat the air around it, causing the planet to have the extreme temperatures that it does have now. Now, if we increase our climate to an extreme like that, we could cause the same fate for our planet. Because human-enhanced greenhouse gases are much different. It's the exact same effect, but that little bit of heat that was previously escaping back into space is now being trapped. So almost all of the heat is retained in the atmosphere, and it heats the air at a much higher rate, causing an increase in average temperature. Now this happens slowly, but it builds up over time, and that buildup is what we're seeing right now. So you may ask, what's causing all these greenhouse gas emissions? All these high amounts of carbon and all these other toxins that are being spewed into our atmosphere. What's causing them? Well, everything we do every day, that's what's causing them. Driving our cars, heating our homes, anything we do produces excess greenhouse gas. You may say, oh, well, I drive an electric car. Well, that electricity was most likely produced in a coal-burning plant. So even electricity has the ability to produce greenhouse gas emissions. So we can't eliminate extra greenhouse gas emissions, but we can curtail them. We can lower their effects. Say you want to drive this vehicle, this big old truck, getting 8 miles per gallon. Well, if you don't need it, don't drive it. If you own a company, you're hauling a trailer, all those things, you need a truck. But if you're like me, and you just drive to and from school, you don't really need that. It's not necessary. It's excess. So go for smaller vehicles, like this compact car. Gets 40, 45 miles per gallon. Better for the environment, better on your pocketbook. Save money on gas. I realize gas prices are really low right now, but we could save a little more. Who doesn't like a little bit of extra money? Honestly, I'm not perfect. This is my vehicle.
Now I know what you're thinking. This guy's a total hypocrite. He's telling us to drive a hybrid and he's got a big old muscle car. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. You see, the point of it isn't to try and reduce your emissions to a level as if you were living in a rainforest off the land. It's just to step back, look at how much you're using and see if you can improve on it. Try using one of those online footprint calculators. The results may surprise you. I know they did for me, but when I stepped back and I looked at it, I realized that all the areas where my carbon emission numbers are high in the sky are luxury areas. They're things that I don't need, and honestly, I could reduce all of them. Just simply by making less trips with my car, making one big trip instead of 4 little ones to go and get things, carpooling when I go to a sporting event or to school, turning the thermostat down by 2 degrees in the winter and up by 2 degrees in the summer, installing energy-efficient appliances, light bulbs, insulation. All these things that we already all know about and that most of us already do. But if you print out one of these footprint calculators and look at it, you'll see the areas where you might need a little bit of improvement. So after I saw that, I looked it up again, and I checked it out without those areas included, with my emissions reduced. And it was shocking, the results. I couldn't believe how much just these little things added up over a year. And I can only imagine if we all do that and reduce our emissions, not only will it help the environment, but it'll send a message to those people that we want to globally mitigate climate change with. Those presidents and prime ministers and all those big businesses. It'll send them a message that the people want to lower our emissions, that this is what we need. And then maybe they'll start listening.
It doesn't take much to reduce your emissions, and we all make a difference. If everyone pitches in and adjusts their daily lives just a little bit, we'll be back on track in no time. Climate change will be reversed, and it will be nothing more than a small blemish on the history of our ecosystem. The best part about it, though, is we won't have to hear about it anymore every single day. I guess the only annoying thing left on the news will be Donald Trump.